views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, welcome to today's verdict, a live and interactive show that brings you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. As you can see, we are once again coming to you from my home. This is our third show on the coronavirus, and we tackle a wide range of topics. We have three guests joining us today. State Senator Jen Metzger is here to discuss the natural disaster bill, which, if enacted, is an act leading to the establishment of voting by mail in the case of a natural disaster or state of emergency. Next up, our good friend Tom Stebbins will be here to give us his opinion on a new class action that has been filed against the makers of Purell, suggesting that the hand sanitizer makes misleading claims to customers about killing germs. And finally, Merlyne Jean-Louis will provide much needed information regarding the resources that are available for small businesses to help through this troubling time. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's verdict starts right now. All right, welcome back to today's verdict. We're happy to have State Senator Jen Metzger with us. First and foremost, Senator, how are you feeling?
Well, under the circumstances, I'm well. I'm healthy and safe, and my family are healthy and safe. But this is, of course, an unprecedented and very challenging time for everyone.
It's tough. You know, we're my family. We're in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. There's a lot of social distancing that we're trying to do. We're in a hot spot here,
That's right.
But hopefully, you know, we'll all get through this. We want to discuss a few things with you. The first and foremost is your national disaster bill. Could you tell the viewers a little bit about it?
Sure. So I introduced a bill in March that would require the State Board of Elections to create a plan that provides for the establishment of a vote-by-mail system in times of natural disaster or state of emergency like we have now. And you know, we saw just yesterday, you know, that kind of disastrous consequences in Wisconsin of not being adequately prepared to, you know, have an election safely in the midst of a global, you know, pandemic. So it takes some time to develop such a plan, but I think it's just prudent for us in New York State to do that. And a vote-by-mail system, it's been in place in 3 states for some time now. Voters receive a ballot automatically in the mail, and they can mail it back in, or there are drop-off locations. And it's been in place in Oregon since, I think, 1995, the federal primary then. It's in Washington State since 2011 and Colorado since 2013. And they've had, you know, a very good experience with it. And it's just prudent that we develop some kind of plan because, you know, many of our poll workers, first of all, many of them are retired, are elderly. They had to close many polls in Wisconsin yesterday because they didn't have the poll workers. So this is really about doing whatever we can in New York to make sure that we allow people to exercise that basic democratic right safely and make sure we get, you know, as good a voter turnout as we possibly can.
Well, Senator, let me ask you a question because, you know, in the past, absentee ballots in New York have not gone so smoothly. They've certainly been a little cumbersome just getting them out, people to sign them, send them back. What do you think the plan would entail to make sure that everything moves a little bit more efficiently than it has in the past in New York?
So So first of all, a key difference between the kind of universal vote by mail system I'm talking about and what we have in place now in New York, and now we've had absentee ballots, and it's actually used by many people. But you have to, as you mentioned, it's kind of a cumbersome process. You have to apply for a ballot, and then you receive one from the local board of elections. And I am concerned that if just that process alone is going to really result in reduced voter participation, just having to go through the steps. Now, that doesn't, in the case I'm talking about, they would automatically get a ballot in the mail. I do want to say that, we have to allow for the fact it's a major system change to send ballots in the mail. There has to be a way for people. The Board of Elections would have to develop a system to make sure people could get access to ballots in the case of a change of address or to address any issues with people not being able to get their ballot in the mail. And you're not eliminating polls entirely. I think you always have to have some way for people to vote, but it would in person, but it would greatly reduce the numbers, improve the safety of people when they vote. So,
do you think we can get this done by April 28th, which is the Democratic primary? Is that a possibility?
Well, that's right. So that's now with the state of there's been an executive order now to extend that primary to the June federal primary date. So there won't be an April primary, and there would have been no way to get a change in system like this, a plan in place by the April deadline. Now we're looking at June elections, and the bill requires that the State Board of Elections have a plan in place by May 1st to enable sufficient time to implement such a plan for the June elections. But again, time is really of the essence. If we're going to really, it's a major undertaking to change, alter the way voting is done in a state, certainly a populous state like New York. And that planning has to happen now, really regardless whether you're going by a vote by mail system or making other changes to accommodate the public health emergency we're facing. That planning absolutely has to start now.
What do you think the justification was in Wisconsin with respect to the courts, allowing the primary to go forward, even though we saw the disastrous social distancing results?
There's
been a lot of backlash.
It's absolutely mind-boggling to me. It really is, because there's no way that it could have any other result but to put people at risk. It's directly contradicted a state stay-at-home order and would dramatically reduce voter participation. I mean, it's just it boggles my mind, that decision. But I think it is a wake-up call to us here in New York and elsewhere in the country that we really need to get into gear and prepare. We don't know how long we're going to be in this state of emergency. It's impossible really to tell. Hopefully, we'll be out of it sooner rather than later. But prudent planning is really needed.
Any idea when maybe the voting for the disaster bill may take place, or when all that can? What do you think?
So we're in recess. The state legislature is in. We just finished the state budget last week and are in recess. And we actually passed a joint resolution with the Assembly to enable the legislature to vote and to conduct its business remotely, like everyone else is these days. So, I'm hoping that we'll convene to take up this and other COVID-19 related bills that have been introduced into the legislature soon. So we're hoping soon.
Thank you, State Senator, and hopefully the next time we see you, it'll be in studio. And in the meantime, please stay safe.
You too, David. Thank you so much. Be well.
It's our pleasure.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll be back with more in Today's Verdict right after this. Welcome Tom Stebbins to the show. Tom has been a friend and has been on set many times with us in the Bronx. And of course, times have changed. First and foremost, Tom, how are you feeling?
I'm good. We're hanging in up here in Albany, not near the amount of exposure and tragedy, frankly, that you have had downstate. But, this is eventually going to come everywhere, and we know it's coming to start hit us here in the capital region, and we're really wishing everybody great health.
Do you see a lot of social distancing that is going on up where you are? I know where I am in Manhattan, we're doing the best we can. Are they starting to do that more and more? Are they wearing masks? Why don't you give us a little perspective of what it looks like outside your home?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of social distancing. We're seeing a lot more masks. And in the Capitol, we are seeing a shutdown, essentially, of the legislature. 3 different assembly people have contracted the virus. A Senator Stewart, contracted the virus and was only just today taken off the ventilator because he is getting better. But the state government really has had to shift under these circumstances because they can't really meet anymore. And many of the decisions are being made by Governor Cuomo right now.
All right, let's get down to business. And that has to do with, let's talk some lawsuits, because we know that's what you do best, your take on frivolous lawsuits. Let's start with Purell, right? I mean, I don't think I've used a word more often in the last 3 months than I have used the word Purell. So obviously there is a class action. We've heard about this. What's your take?
My take is it's absurd. I mean, right now at this point, they're facing a class action when they are struggling to get this hand sanitizer out the door. And we have right now a plaintiff's lawyer who is trying to take advantage of the current situation by suing them. And, their intent obviously is to make some money. And really, I think for the common good right now, we need to make sure that Purell is focused on getting hand sanitizer into our stores.
Well, it looks like, the class action is, basically 4 different plaintiffs in 4 different states. We have California, Michigan, Massachusetts, and Oregon. How do you find these particular plaintiffs? Do you think the attorney went out and found the plaintiffs? The plaintiffs found the attorney? How do you think this all really began a couple of months ago?
I think a lot of it is generally lawyer-driven. So the lawyers see an opportunity, and then they try to find plaintiffs. And frankly, that's backwards as to where our system should be. There should be an injury, somebody finds a lawyer, somebody gets justice. It should not be that a lawyer sees an opportunity and then tries to find somebody to put a name on a lawsuit. That's just not the way the system should work. And I think that's frankly what we're seeing here. There was a ruling by the FDA that said to Purell, we're not sure you can make these claims. And an attorney saw that, or at least I believe they did, and then decided, all right, we have an opportunity here. Let's find some plaintiffs and let's file a lawsuit.
Well, it seems very, very bad timing because if anything, many people are looking to Purell when they don't have access to soap and water. And if there are deaths that do occur, there could actually be some wrongful death actions that even may transpire out of these particular lawsuits. Do you think that may happen? Do you think there'll be motions to dismiss? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I am hoping that as we come out of this, there will not be a fury of lawsuits saying that should have done this, should have done that. Obviously, everybody is doing the best they can and making some difficult decisions. And that said, I still think we are going to see a lot of those lawsuits. People are, and attorneys are going to try to make some money off this, and that's unfortunate. We actually just saw an additional claim filed today against Target for hand sanitizer. So I think anybody who makes hand sanitizer right now is a target, not because hand sanitizer doesn't work. It's more because the FDA filed this ruling, and I think that plaintiffs' attorneys are taking advantage of that to try to make some money.
I know JoJo Industries, which is the parent company of Purell, probably has a ton of attorneys working on this. There's a ton of liability exposure, either with doctors and whoever they need to show that the 99% of illnesses that they say that it eradicates really does work, or at least that their particular claims were not fraudulent and misleading. When do you think this will actually get into the federal court dockets and in terms of discovery, and it will start to proceed? Do we have to wait for the whole coronavirus to end for this?
Right now, the courts are more or less shut down, so it's certainly going to take a long time, but we hope that it actually gets dismissed. The problem here is that the FDA made a ruling, and then the lawyers are taking advantage of that, alleging these injuries. But really, the problem is a regulatory problem. This is not a law tort problem, in my opinion. It is a regulatory problem. And the FDA filed a regulatory action, and if they believe that there are regulatory punishments that should be enacted, then so be it. But I don't believe that this is such a grave injury as to have to be litigated. What in fact is the injury here? I just don't believe that there is a significant injury enough that this should be the subject of class action.
I think you may have been correct 2 months ago. The problem is now the injury may be somebody relying on it as opposed to didn't have access to soap and water, and that could be the liability exposure, but I guess we're not really sure.
A lot of this injury, too, is speculative. They're saying you can't prove that it kills COVID, even though we know that alcohol solutions generally kill viruses and generally kill these things, but you can't say that it does that specifically. Fine, then stop saying it. And that's what the regulatory ruling did. But that doesn't mean that this doesn't kill COVID. Again, the injury here is speculative, and therefore, in my opinion, the lawsuit is speculative.
Well, speaking of liability protections, there are certainly many people who would like some protections given the pandemic. What are your thoughts on who should be protected and how they should be protected?
Well, right now, the Governor Cuomo issued an executive order to protect doctors from making COVID-related decisions, and obviously they are making some of the most heartbreaking decisions imaginable right now. Similarly, they provided protections to hospitals and medical facilities, and that was done by the legislature. So we have our medical professionals right now protected from some liability. We're hoping that we can get some additional protective measures for, say, a facility that is now manufacturing PPE, personal protective equipment, some protections there. Some protections for equipment that was, say, donated. We would like to see some protections for donated equipment. There's a lot of our essential services beyond just the medical that could really use these protections, because the last thing we want is somebody helping, somebody volunteering, somebody trying to do the right thing and ending up facing a lawsuit. Now, importantly, all of these protections come with the caveat, except in the case of gross negligence. So, and that's I think appropriate. If you're grossly negligent, you're still liable. But if you're making a decision based on the information that you have, there are some protections, right? At least for medical facilities, and we'd like to see that expanded.
Do you think there's any particular exposure for maybe masks or for any type of equipment? Does that seem to be the target? Pardon the pun, because we were talking about Target a second ago about hand sanitizers, but does it look like those who are making masks or have anything to do with protective clothing may be a target of these types of lawsuits in the next, 3 to 6 months?
Well, the good news is the federal government actually passed protections in what was called the PrEP Act for that personal protective equipment. But our concern is that people providing essential services, let's say working at a gas station or a grocery store or something like that, and then they contract COVID, that is the risk of providing essential services, unfortunately, right now. And we're hoping that we can get some protections there.
All right. Well, Tom, stay safe up in Albany. Union
Thank
College,
you,
my
David.
my alma mater, Union College. I'd love to get up there at some point. In the meantime, we'll have you back soon. And
Thanks.
like I said, social distance, stay safe.
Yeah, and hopefully when you come up, we can have some lunch and it won't be socially distanced.
Would like that. All right.
All right, take care, David.
We'll be back with some more Today's Verdict right after this. We're here with Merlyne Jean-Louis. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Merlyne Jean-Louis.
Got it. Well, who has been a friend to the show and has been in the studio with us, obviously. That can't be today. The first thing, Merlyne, how are you feeling?
I'm okay. I'm taking it day by day as everyone is in here in New York City. So, and how about you?
Well, we're in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. There's been some social distancing going on. We've been to Central Park a few times, but basically we stay in the apartment.
Absolutely.
But hopefully this will all pass at some point.
I hope so. I hope so.
Now, I have a small business, which is a law firm, and we are applying for certain relief. But you're the expert, so why don't you give our viewers a little tutorial as to what they can and maybe cannot do if they're looking for some monies and they are a small business.
Yes, I would love to talk to you about that. So there, fortunately, in response to the coronavirus pandemic, federal and local state governments have taken initiative to help small businesses. I think the most popular one that most people are hearing about are the ones provided by the Small Business Administration, which is called, for short, the SBA. There are two programs that are in existence right now. There is the Paycheck Protection Program. That is a program whose main goal is to help small businesses, which are classified as sole proprietorships, independent contractors, or businesses that have less than 500 employees, help them maintain their payroll. And
where would you apply for that? Is that through your banks? Is that on your own? Is that through a website? Where would you do that?
So to get a description of what the program is, you can go to sba.gov. But in order to apply, most banks are require that applicants have had either a checking account with them prior to February 15th, which is when the disaster was, the coronavirus was considered to be a disaster, or they should have a credit relationship, either have a credit card or get a loan from a certain bank. And so every bank has its own process.
Now, do you apply on your own? Do you apply with a representative from the bank? Is it a combination of both? I know I've been applying through Chase, and I'm doing most of the heavy lifting myself.
Correct. Yeah.
And
the same thing. I think banks were sort of blindsided by the rule set down by the government. So I think banks are still trying to figure it out. I too went through Chase. Their application process was, hey, let us know you're interested, and then we'll email you as to whether we're going to have you apply online or whether we're going to call you. So it's going to be mainly on your own. You want to make sure you have records. You want to know how much revenue you've had in the last 12 months. You want to know if you've paid contractors certain amounts. You want to know your payroll costs. There is certain information that you just want to have on hand from either the last 12 months or the last calendar year as well, because some banks are actually basing the payroll costs analysis on the last calendar year.
I'm not sure if you can answer this, but I'm going to give it a shot. The rumor is that you can get some protection and you may not have to pay back a certain amount of it. Yeah. What have you heard about this?
There is something called from the SBA also called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It's different from the Paycheck Protection Program. If you're able to successfully apply for that within a couple of days of getting that approval, you get up to $10,000 advance that you don't have to pay back.
Well, that would be nice.
It would.
It would. A lot easier. Okay, so now you don't necessarily have to be a corporation or a partnership. Am I correct?
You don't.
Could you be a? Tell us who qualifies.
Right. So this is small businesses. So whether you're a sole proprietor, whether you are an independent contractor, you're able to, whether you're LLC or corporation, and you have employees under 500, you're able to apply for this.
There are other places, from what I'm told, that also are available for smaller businesses. There are a few here. I've had Dancers slash NYC Coronavirus Dance Relief Fund. Tell us a little bit about that fund.
I actually spoke on this at their symposium after this. But yeah, the Dance NYC Corona Relief Fund is set up by that Dance NYC and is looking to help particularly dancers. Their career is based on in-person interaction. So I'm very happy that the organization has taken some steps to provide relief particularly to dancers. There's also the Freelancers Union. They also have been providing some sources of relief, or sources of so people can find out what exactly they can do as freelancers to get assistance.
Have you had any feeling as to which businesses you seem to see that are really hurting the most? I know where I am here, the restaurants are closed up, so we know waiters, not necessarily the delivery men, but the waiters might be prevented. Also in my own business, the attorneys who get paid daily just to go to court, they're affected because they can't go to court. Are you having any personal feelings or about certain industries?
Personal feelings like hair salons, nail salons, beauty people who support the beauty industry, like they're suffering because their main source of income is through getting someone getting their hair done, getting nails done. I also an entertainment lawyer, like cameramen, like freelancers in that industry are suffering, and so it's unfortunate what's happening right now.
Okay, we don't have too much time. Can you give maybe some tips to our viewers now, and what you would recommend in terms of getting the ball rolling, in terms of applying for the loan or applying for it? We talked about this a little bit offset, that you really can't apply for the grant at this point. That's already passed.
Right. So so the New York City had a grant that their last date of application was April 3rd, but they also have a small business continuity loan fund that you may be able to apply for. So I would say you could definitely Google that, the NYC Small Business Continuity Loan Fund. For the federal relief, go to sba.gov to get more information. Also go to your local bank to ask them to inquire as to how you can actually get those loans from the SBA.
Well, Merlyne, that's some great stuff. We really appreciate it here. And hopefully the next time we see you, you're going to be in studio.
Yes.
Maybe we can get together, say hello. And the most important thing is for you to be safe with your family. Where are you now, by the way? Where are you staying?
I'm located in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn. Does it look like there's some social distancing that's been going on? Because from what I hear, some of the parks are still unfortunately getting crowded.
Where I am, no, not at all. Like, I'm very happy. I mean, I've had to go out to buy food, but I like the fact that Trader Joe's is actually taking practices to make sure that we are distancing ourselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Important stuff. All right, stay safe. And hopefully we'll see you soon in person.
Website. Can I send my website where I'm?
Absolutely, please give it to us.
jllaw.net. That's JLLAW.net. If you want more information.
Love it. All right, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, viewers, for watching. If you have any questions about today's show, please feel free to email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org or tweet us at Today's Verdict. From all of us at home and in the studio, always remember, know your rights, know the law, reach your verdict. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.